They absolutely just got hammered by the Thunder a few days ago. Covering this game, our NBA reporters Dave McMenamin and Tim McMahon. So, Dave, let's start with you. What about LeBron's status, and what are the Lakers really looking to accomplish here in their final few games?
Yeah, Hannah, LeBron's listed as questionable, and I'm told this is truly a questionable situation. Sometimes the guy's listed as questionable, it's more of a game time decision, but with the extra workload that he had against Dallas the other day when they didn't have Luka and Austin for the first time, and the fact that this is the first game of a stretch where the Lakers have 3 games in 4 nights with Golden State and Phoenix coming up, I would be surprised if he's in the lineup. What the Lakers are trying to accomplish over this final stretch is clearly hold on to the number 3 seed, first of all, and also try to find a way to play a defensive brand of basketball. The game got in the 130s on Dallas, in Dallas the other day. That was not their plan, but when you give up 40 points in the first quarter and you're playing catch up, you're going to have to try to score. But when you're missing 60 points a night from Luka and Austin combined, you don't want to get out into a shootout. So the Lakers are hoping to slow down the pace, prioritize possessions as they work towards the end of the regular season.
Yeah, they're just a half a game behind the Nuggets. So right now they're in that 4 spot where they would meet the Rockets in the first round. Okay, Tim. OKC, obviously they want that top seed. Currently 2.5 game lead over the Spurs. Wemby is injured. We don't know how seriously. How healthy is the Thunder? What are they doing in that regard as we approach the playoffs?
Right, 2 wins away from clinching the top seed. Health is a priority for Oklahoma City. That's why Jalen Williams is sitting out tonight against the Lakers on the front end of a back-to-back. Obviously, he's had a rough season with health. That hamstring has he's hurt that on 2 different occasions. Want to get him ramped up and in rhythm by the time the playoffs start, but more than anything, they want him healthy. So he's sitting tonight. It would not be surprising if Isaiah Hartenstein, who's strained his calf on a couple of occasions this year, sits tomorrow night against the Clippers. But look, they are focused on health. They are also focused on continuing to build and develop the championship habits that helped them win a title last year. And again, they are 2 wins away from clinching. They hope to get that done on this quick trip to L.A.
Yeah, they really want to do that. They have had the Lakers number 3-0 against them, and we saw what happened last week in that beatdown against LA. Dave McMenamin and champion, and for the first time since 1989, it is indeed the Michigan Wolverines. Their tournament run, one of the most dominant in NCAA tournament history, averaging over 90 points per game in the tourney. The second highest scoring championship team since the tournament expanded in the mid-'80s. Only Larry Johnson's 1990 UNLV team scored more. Our college basketball analyst Seth Greenberg joins us one final time from Indy. So, Seth, I mean, the Wolverines might have gotten key plays at key times, but it certainly wasn't their offense that won this championship. They were held to less than 70 points. How did they kind of beat UConn at UConn's game?
Their size, their length, their athleticism, they protected the rim, they protected the paint, they protected the three-point line. The overall force that they played with defensively and the length of their defense was the difference in the game. And then they dominated the game in the paint offensively, 36 points in the paint. They only scored 8 points outside of the paint. They got to the free throw line. So their size and length and physicality was the difference in this game. And I also think the collective responsibility, you're talking about 5 transfers. 5 transfers, step in, trust each other, compete together, play to win, embrace their roles, and win a national championship. An incredible display. And I said this earlier, they played the NCAA tournament like 5 guarantee games. That's how good they were. And obviously a 6 against UConn. So all those schools should get their NCAA check and another $150,000 for the guarantee game.
Yeah, they punched UConn in the mouth. That's something the Huskies aren't used to seeing. And it has been such a good year for the Big Ten. I'm really glad you brought up the transfer portal because we saw what Indiana did in football. We've just seen UCLA win in women's hoops. So with Michigan basketball, what kind of template did they give us for what it takes to win a championship in this era?
I think first, you got to give the administrations credit for hiring the right coaches, whether it's Corey Close, whether it's Coach Signetti, or it's Dusty May. Then you've got to give those good coaches the resources, and that's exactly what they did. You're a Big Ten school, or there's a cost of doing business, and they gave these coaches the resources to be successful, then those coaches have to invest wisely. And you think about Dusty May, he signed 4 guys in the portal last year, 5 completely, if you include Amari Burnett the year before. And, all those guys had scars. Morris Johnson was hurt. And you're talking about Mara didn't start at UCLA. Kadosh struggled at North Carolina. But they saw something in those guys, and they got a collective responsibility and a trust within the group. And man, were they a special team.
Yeah, Cadeau was really impressive, I thought, in the championship game. And, Seth, listen, we all know that you know Dan Hurley well. I mean, what are your thoughts on the job that he did again this season? Once again, he reaches the title game for the 3rd time in 4 seasons.
Absolutely incredible how he brought this team along. But there's a couple of lasting impressions of me of this season. The first was them walking off the court with his arms around Solo Ball and Alex Caravan, and how emotional he was. Reading about him on the bus ride to the game and how emotional he was. But the thing that really resonated with me with him, the side that people don't see of Dan Hurley, is Dan Hurley and his team waited until the Michigan team celebrated and stayed on that court watching them celebrate to make sure they shook their hands at the end of the game. And that's Dan Hurley. He respects the game. He's a brilliant coach. I say he's a genius, but most geniuses are a little quirky. He's a little quirky, but when you get past all that, besides being a brilliant coach, a master teacher, a great educator of the game of basketball, he's an incredible human being. You see the sideline antics. You don't see all the things he does off the court, and that's why those guys play so hard for him, and that's why UConn isn't going anywhere. They're going to be back knocking on that door because the guy is a great coach, but he's also an incredible human being.
You know what else stuck with me? I kind of got a chuckle out of this. In his post-game presser, he was talking about the disparity from the line, right, which was considerable. And then he basically said, "Oh, those 3 referees, if they call every game for the rest of my career, I'm fine." So I think that
quirky genius.
Yes, exactly. Seth, listen, enjoy your much-deserved time off. It was a blast being with you this college basketball season.
Thanks for having me, Hannah. You guys have been so kind to me all season. Thank you.
This just into SportsCenter. South Carolina women's.
Following a developing story here on SportsCenter, Victor Wembanyama sat out the second half of the Spurs' win over the Sixers last night after suffering a rib contusion. As you know, he's the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year. He's an MVP candidate, second favorite in that regard, but he needs to play at least 20 minutes in one more game to be eligible for the awards, and San Antonio has 3 regular season games left, as we're joined by NBA champion and analyst Iman Shumpert. And we don't know the severity of the injury, but it can be painful. It can take weeks in some cases to resolve on its own. Do you sit Wemby, Iman, and get him ready for the playoffs, or do you bring him in to play those 20 minutes to be able to get DPOY?
Well, thank God I'm not the coach, Hannah, but I'm letting him play, and that young man has worked his tail off to make sure that his team is in a great position. He has talked and been very loud about what he feels like he should be pursuing as far as individual awards. I think that San Antonio Spurs should reward him and make sure that he does that. It is a bruise, entirely. So I'm hoping that it's nothing too bad, that he can play through it, get his 20 minutes on the board, and then have a seat and get ready for playoffs.
Listen, if he's not at 100%, what does that do to the Spurs and kind of the makeup of the East going into the postseason, the West going into the postseason?
Well, I think that they've put themselves into a comfortable position. I think that he was only playing, the extra amount for the in-season awards. Right now, the Spurs have put themselves in a great position to make sure that they can be where they need to be and match up with OKC for that final round if everything goes as planned. But the plan for Wemby and making sure that he's healthy, that's a guy that's a young guy. He's a competitor. He's going to want to be out there. I can't imagine a world where Wemby doesn't suit up, play his 20 minutes and beyond.
Yeah, obviously we know they have OKC's number, and they are 11-5 without Wemby this season. Let's go to the East. We saw the Knicks beat the Hawks last night. They got really lucky, surviving a near buzzer beater from C.J. McCollum. Jalen Brunson had struggled a couple of games, but he was really good down the stretch. Now they're going to be playing the Celtics this week. What do you need to see in these last few games from New York to convince you that they can make a significant playoff run?
Well, I was encouraged with just handling the storm. They've had issues with all the teams above 500 as of late and guys at the top of the conference that they've been playing. And it was good to see them get out there and do that, to see Cat play efficiently, to see Jalen not play as well, but then make sure that he keeps his guys close and at the end of the game, take over the game and be the clutch factor that he normally is. The most encouraging part of it all was to see at the very end of the game, you finally got to see Jalen Brunson and Cat play their little two-man game. And I've been talking about that so much. I want to be scared of that. I want people to fear that. And finally, they gave me a little look of it. It was a pistol action, some pinch post action, but it's him and Cat, and you got to pick a decision. Who you want to kill you?
Yeah, listen, that was a little appetizer, right? We need a full menu of that. A full menu.
I need a lot of it, a healthy diet.
Who do you want to kill you? Mon, we'll see you more on NBA Today at 3 Eastern. Thanks, my friend.
The Los Angeles Lakers are now the 4th seed, not because they lost a game tonight, because Denver came back from 16 points down in the 4th quarter against Portland, went to overtime, won, and quietly took the 3rd seed away from a team that cannot stop anything right now without playing a single game against them. LeBron James is questionable for tonight's home game against the Oklahoma City Thunder, the same Thunder that beat them by 43 points 5 days ago, with left foot injury management. Doncic is in Spain getting injections in his torn hamstring. Reeves is in Los Angeles rehabbing a torn oblique. Marcus Smart has been out for 8 consecutive games. And tonight, the Lakers face a team with a 95.7% implied probability of winning, according to the odds makers, which means the people whose job is to calculate outcomes for a living believe there is roughly a 1 in 12 chance that this short-handed, injury-destroyed, 4th-seeded version of the Lakers beats the defending champions at home. Michael Thompson said a WWE wrestler cursed the franchise. Kenyon Martin went on television and talked about Kobe Bryant's greatness. LeBron became the oldest player in NBA history to score 30 points and distribute 15 assists in the same game against the Dallas Mavericks, a team with 25 wins, and still lost by 6. This is where we are. This is what we are discussing. Hit the like button because tonight might be the most honest test of what this franchise actually is when everything that made it dangerous has been medically removed. No optimism, no comfort, just the situation as it actually exists. So let us begin talking firstly about the seeding collapse that happened without the Lakers playing a single minute of basketball on Monday night, because the specific cruelty of losing a seed position while your players are resting at home is the kind of thing that produces the particular helpless frustration that no amount of effort or competitive will can address. Denver was losing to the Portland Trail Blazers by 16 points with 8.5 minutes remaining in the 4th quarter of a game that looked by every conventional indicator like a loss that would preserve the Lakers' 3rd seed for another day. Then Nikola Jokic happened. The Nuggets scored 26 and allowed 10 in the final stretch of regulation, forcing overtime. Jokic finished with 35 points and a triple-double. Jamal Murray scored 7 in the 5 extra minutes. Denver won. And just like that, without the Lakers taking a single shot, receiving a single foul call, or making a single decision that could have altered the outcome, the Western Conference standings flipped, and the Lakers woke up Tuesday morning as the 4th seed, facing the Houston Rockets in round 1 rather than the 6th seed Minnesota Timberwolves in round 3. The NBA.com official playoff bracket confirmed what the math was already suggesting. Denver 3rd, Lakers 4th, Houston 5th. And the first round matchup that this situation creates is specifically and substantially worse than the one the Lakers were planning for before the injury crisis began. The Timberwolves are dealing with Anthony Edwards' runner's knee that has kept him out of 8 of the last 10 games, which created the specific scenario where two injury-depleted teams facing each other represented the Lakers' best realistic path to extending the series long enough for Doncic and Reeves to return in round 2. The Rockets present a categorically different challenge. Kevin Durant is healthy. Alperen Şengün is producing at an elite level. The Rockets have won 4 consecutive games entering the final week. Their fourth quarter assist-to-turnover ratio is among the worst in the league, 27th in the NBA, which means they struggle in clutch situations without a genuine point guard. A vulnerability the Lakers could theoretically exploit if they had the specific players whose job it is to exploit late-game breakdowns. Those players are in Spain and in Los Angeles on rehabilitation protocols. The version of the Lakers that faces the Rockets in round 1 is the version that lost to the Dallas Mavericks by 6 points on Sunday. The version where LeBron James produced 30 points and 15 assists, and it was not enough. And where the supporting cast's inability to generate quality shots without Doncic's gravity was visible in every third quarter possession that stalled against a defense the Mavericks were not even fully deploying. I believe the seeding collapse from 3rd to 4th represents a genuinely significant deterioration in the Lakers' playoff outlook beyond the pure symbolic value of home court advantage, because the specific first-round opponent changes from a compromised Anthony Edwards situation that created genuine uncertainty to a healthy Kevin Durant situation that creates much less of it. And the difference between those two matchups for a team operating without its two primary offensive creators is not subtle or debatable. It is large, and it is consequential. Now, let us talk about the specific absurdity of LeBron James being listed as questionable for a game against the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight, because the word questionable does not begin to capture the specific organizational dilemma that this notation on an injury report represents. LeBron is 41 years old. He played 39 minutes against Dallas on Sunday, producing 30 points and 15 assists in the loss, becoming in the process the oldest player in NBA history to register that specific statistical combination in a single game, a record that in any other week would be the dominant storyline of the entire season, but that in this particular week exists as background information to the injury crisis consuming everything around it. He woke up Tuesday as the only functional star on the Los Angeles Lakers roster, which means his left foot injury management notation is not simply an item on a medical report. It is an organizational question about whether the franchise is willing to risk the health of the only irreplaceable player currently available in a home game against the 62-16 Thunder that the odds makers believe has an 8.3% chance of producing a Lakers victory. The implied probability of 95.7% for OKC is not a statement that the Thunder are very good. Everyone already knew they were very good. It is a statement that the specific version of the Lakers taking the floor tonight, without Doncic and Reeves, and potentially without LeBron, is not recognizable as a competitive basketball team by the standards that championship-caliber opponents establish. The Thunder beat them by 43 5 days ago, with Doncic and Reeves both in the lineup and both injured but playing. The version that takes the floor tonight is definitionally worse than the version that got demolished by 43. and LeBron, who has been managing chronic arthritic issues in his left leg throughout the season and who logged 39 minutes of maximum effort 2 days ago, is now being weighed against a game that the organization cannot win with him, and certainly cannot win without him, in a week where winning is not the organizational priority, but losing him to an aggravated foot injury would be catastrophically consequential for the playoff series that begins in 11 days. The Lakers have 10 straight home wins entering tonight. That streak is going to end. The only question that actually matters is whether LeBron James is healthy enough to begin the playoffs. And the specific decision about whether to play him tonight against OKC is the one that will be scrutinized most intensely if he starts round one hobbled rather than healthy. Thinking about it carefully, the correct organizational decision is almost certainly to rest LeBron against OKC tonight, accept a defeat that was already predetermined by the injury report regardless of his availability, and preserve the specific physical condition that represents the Lakers' only realistic competitive asset heading into a first-round series that begins on April 18th. But making that decision means losing a home game to the Thunder, potentially falling further in the standings and publicly conceding that the regular season is functionally over before it has officially concluded. The Timberwolves conversation that was the central focus of the Lakers' playoff strategy discussion before the seeding collapse deserves honest examination now that it is no longer the relevant first-round opponent, because the specific reasoning behind it reveals something important about how badly the injury crisis has degraded this franchise's options, and how dramatically the competitive landscape has shifted in 96 hours. The argument for Minnesota as the preferred matchup was specific and coherent. Anthony Edwards has runner's knee, the same condition that kept Stephen Curry out of 27 consecutive games for Golden State, and has played in only 2 of the Timberwolves' last 10 games, creating a scenario where the Lakers' depleted roster faces an equally depleted opponent rather than a healthy team at full strength. Chris Finch acknowledged after a loss to the Charlotte Hornets that his team feels a million miles away from what it can be, which is precisely the kind of opponent that a team extending a series on survival instincts rather than competitive dominance needs in round one. The Rockets replaced that favorable dynamic with Kevin Durant averaging 27 points per game in his first season in Houston, Şengün producing at an elite interior level, and a team that has won 4 consecutive games entering the final week of the regular season. The Lakers held tiebreakers over both Denver and Houston, the specific protection that was supposed to prevent this exact scenario from materializing. But tiebreakers only matter when the records are equal, and Denver's 10-game winning surge through the final stretch has moved them ahead outright, making the tiebreaker irrelevant unless the Lakers win enough games in the final week to pull even again. With LeBron questionable and the remaining schedule including OKC, Golden State with Curry returning after 27 games, and the Phoenix Suns, the realistic probability of the Lakers winning 3 of their final 4 games, which is the minimum needed to have any chance of reclaiming the 3rd seed, is approximately as realistic as Doncic returning from his hamstring injection in Spain to play against Portland next Tuesday. I believe the most honest available statement about the Lakers' seeding situation is that the 3rd seed is gone, and the 5th seed is a genuine threat, and that the organizational energy currently being directed towards seeding discussions would be better invested in the specific medical and tactical preparation for a first-round series against Houston that begins in less than 2 weeks, with a roster whose competitive ceiling has been definitively established by 2 losses to mediocre opponents in the last 5 days. The Rui Hachimura dependency that this injury situation has created represents the most uncomfortable strategic reality the Lakers face in the immediate term. Because a player whose entire value proposition rests on the specific condition of being surrounded by offensive creators who remove defensive attention from him is now being asked to perform in the complete absence of those creators, which transforms his primary asset from a tactical advantage into a structural liability. When Doncic is on the floor and drawing defensive attention from multiple bodies simultaneously, Hachimura receives clean catch-and-shoot opportunities from positions on the floor that his specific shooting mechanics are optimized to convert. The 21-point performance against Dallas reflected exactly this dynamic. Without Doncic, the defense still had to account for LeBron as a primary threat, and Hachimura received looks that were marginally cleaner than they would be with Doncic drawing maximum coverage. The 4-point, -39 performance against OKC reflected the opposite dynamic. Against a defense sophisticated and athletic enough to contain LeBron while simultaneously monitoring every other rotation player, Hachimura received contested looks from positions that are not his optimal spots, made decisions at a pace that exceeded his comfort threshold, and produced the specific kind of non-performance that his entire career has demonstrated is the predictable output when the offensive system around him is disrupted beyond a certain threshold. Hachimura is in the final year of his $51 million contract, which means this playoff run represents his primary audition for whatever comes next in his career, either a re-signing with the Lakers or a free agency market that will evaluate his performance in exactly the high-stakes, star-depleted situations that the next 2 weeks will provide. The specific irony of Hachimura's contract situation is that the absence of Doncic and Reeves creates both the maximum visibility for his individual contributions and the minimum structural support for producing those contributions, which means his audition is happening under the conditions least likely to showcase his actual capabilities and most likely to expose the specific limitations that make him a conditional rather than an unconditional asset. Thinking about it carefully, the Hachimura question over the next 2 weeks will tell you more about whether this organization re-signs him than any contract negotiation discussion could. Because the playoffs without stars are the specific environment where organizational decisions about who belongs on a championship roster and who belongs on a competitive but limited roster become visible in ways that 15 points on a Tuesday in March against a tanking team simply cannot reveal. The Danny Green observation that Doncic's workload caused the injury is the uncomfortable medical accountability question that nobody in the organizational structure wants to answer publicly. And the specific facts support Green's argument more than the Lakers' official position does. Doncic played 38 minutes in a game the Lakers were losing by 31 points at halftime. He had shown hamstring discomfort in the first quarter. He received treatment at halftime. He was cleared to return. He played for approximately 4 minutes before the hamstring tore. The same hamstring had appeared on the injury report before the Brooklyn Nets game just 10 days earlier. The same hamstring had forced him to miss 4 games in February. The same hamstring had been managed with on and off soreness since before the All-Star break. Green's point, that the accumulated workload of a player who was averaging nearly 38 minutes per game over a 6-week winning stretch, who had been managing a recurring soft tissue injury with documented history, who played through discomfort in the first quarter of the OKC game rather than being removed immediately, is not unreasonable given the medical timeline. The organizational defense that the medical staff cleared him and that coaches cannot override medical clearance is procedurally accurate and morally insufficient as a complete explanation, because the specific sequence of a player showing first-quarter hamstring distress, receiving treatment at halftime, being cleared, and then tearing the muscle 4 minutes into the third quarter of a game, the team was losing by 31 points, is a sequence that organizational risk management should have interrupted at multiple points before the tear occurred. I believe the Danny Green diagnosis that the workload caused the injury is directionally correct and organizationally inconvenient, and that the specific lessons about player load management that should emerge from this situation will be the most important organizational learning this franchise takes into next season, regardless of how the playoffs unfold. Michael Thompson blaming a WWE wrestler named Danhausen for the Lakers' injury curse is the specific kind of commentary that emerges when a fan base has exhausted every rational explanation for a sequence of events and arrived at the conclusion that the universe is simply hostile to this particular franchise at this particular moment in time. Thompson posted on social media that the way things have gone for the Lakers in the last week makes him begin to think Danhausen put a curse on them. A reference to a comedic wrestling character whose entire gimmick is placing supernatural curses on opponents, who then experience extended stretches of improbably bad luck. The observation is funny in the way that things become funny when they are too painful to process through any other emotional register. In the span of 5 days, the Lakers lost their best player to a torn hamstring, lost their second best player to a torn oblique, watched their third best player get listed as questionable with foot injury management, fell from the 3rd seed to the 4th seed without losing a game, and are preparing to host the defending champions tonight with a roster that the odds makers believe has an 8.3% chance of winning. The supernatural explanation is not obviously less coherent than the organizational one. Kenyon Martin appearing on television the same week to discuss Kobe Bryant's greatness, specifically his relentless work ethic, his refusal to accept limitations, his competitive standards that made everyone around him better, is the specific kind of historical contrast that this franchise's current moment makes unavoidable, because the team that Kobe built and the team that currently wears the same uniforms are separated by more than 2 decades and more than 2 generations of competitive standards. And the specific conversation about whether this version of the Lakers can survive a first-round playoff series against the Houston Rockets without its 2 best players is one that Kobe would have found genuinely inconceivable as a description of his franchise's situation in any playoff year he was associated with. I believe Michael Thompson's Danhausen reference will age better than most of the serious analytical takes produced this week, because in 10 years, when someone asks what the Lakers' 2026 regular season felt like in its final week, the answer that most accurately captures the emotional experience is probably like a curse. Honestly, it felt like a curse.